Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. Patch 11.07 introduced with it a bunch of new mounts for players to collect. Some can be unlocked in the brand new zone of the Siren Isle, while others can be unlocked through long, arduous achievements for completionist players. Specifically, there's one for completionists for War Within expansion, but also one for Battle for Azeroth. Some of those achievements, however, are long. It will take quite a bit of time, and many players right now are competing for a bunch of various rares and objectives that are required to complete some of those achievements. While trying to get some of those rares, I found myself kind of frustrated with just how many players are sniping those kills constantly, and I wanted to find a way, if it's possible, to circumvent playing the game, an MMORPG, with other players and turn it into somewhat of a solo player experience in order to make some of this mount and rare farming a little bit easier. And it turns out you can, with a handful of easy steps that I wanted to go over in today's video in order to show you a better way as to how you can farm rares and mounts and achievements out in the open world using a brand new character and a few tricks utilizing the Chromie time walking leveling system. As always, if you guys want to see more guides like these on the channel, be sure to follow and subscribe. But otherwise, let's jump right in. So in a patch 11.07, they added a bunch of new achievements and new mounts. One of them is a BFA completionist mount achievement, which I decided to start working on as something to do for the end of the season 1 of War Within. We had to complete all of the objectives to earn a farewell to arms to get a very unique Johnny Trashpile mount. And I started working on a lot of these, but I really got hung up with the Undersea Usurper. Specifically, I thought you said they'd be rare. I only had 2 rares for me to get, Matriarch Zodia as well as Banescale, the Packfather. However, I found out quickly that these rares are being competed on by other players plenty. And right now, unless you're just there perfectly at the right time as the rare spawns, there's almost always somebody out there trying to snipe that same rare. And if you're not online as soon as that thing spawns, or at least for the next few months, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to get those rares to complete that achievement. Later that day, I was trying to collect some footage and I decided to use the public testing realms in order to collect those, and I thought to myself that, man, nobody is on PTR unless there's a new update, so all of these zones are empty. There's so many different rares and so many different things that are up all the time. Wish you could somehow replicate that on the live realms. And then I found out later that night that actually, yes, you can. You can simulate World of Warcraft and turn it into what essentially is a single-player game, where you are very unlikely to encounter other players, and at all times, all the rares are up, and when they spawn, there's nobody there to compete with you against them, and it's actually pretty easy to execute as long as you have some time to level a brand new character. When you level a new character, you can either level naturally or you can level through Chromie time, which puts you in this special instance which alters the world state, allowing you to only see other players that are using Chromie time out in the open world, which means anybody that is leveling. Normally, you choose an expansion and level through it, but enabling any expansion through Chromie time puts you in a different world state, where you're a character that's now separated from the rest of the public or the rest of max level players in your own version of the world, open world specifically, in this Chromie time type of instance. So if, let's say, you go to Najatar to look for treasures and slay rares, you'll be separated from everybody else that isn't using Chromie time. Players using Chromie time instances will be able to see one another, but they'll be secluded away from everybody else, which allows you to have an easier time looking for treasures and rares while separated away from everybody else out in the open world. Even if you are on the same server, you're still separated by Chromie time. However, you can actually add additional layers of separation to almost essentially remove your character away from everybody else and have zones like Najatar, Mechagon, and even older expansion areas filled with rares and treasures and things to collect, basically all to yourself as a solo player, almost playing WoW as a single player mode. Another way to create an extra layer of separation from everybody else is to enable War Mode while Chromie time is available. Technically, a lot of players use Chromie time and War Mode together to level in zones to boost the character very, very quickly, but most of them stick around in areas for Alliance like Loch Madam or the Duskwood or Redridge Mountains, and the Horde players will usually hang around in some of the earlier areas like the Silverpine Forest or Hillsbrad Foothills. Maybe Gorgron, because that's still also another pretty good spot for leveling your characters, but in most cases when players are enabled Chromie Mode and War Mode, they're trying not to fight other players within PvP combat. They just try to have their own solo leveling adventure, which means that nobody else hangs out in any of the max level zones or unique zones that are usually filled with rares and mounts. However, if you choose to level a character on a low population realm, that gives you even less players that you will likely meet while out in the open world. On RP realms in particular, those realms function a little bit differently with war mode. Essentially, when you are on any realm that isn't a roleplay realm like a normal realm, all of those realms will be thrown into a same shard when it comes to world PvP to make sure the world PvP feels plenty healthy and plenty lively. While most realms are more connected to each other through the war mode system, RP realms are less connected. They're a lot more exclusionary, where only RP realms can be kind of thrown together into war mode with other role-playing realms, which means that with Chromie Time on a low pop realm that is an RP realm and a war mode enabled, you're creating instances where there's the least amount of players, where places such as the 20th anniversary Cavern of the Time, which on almost every realm has a number of players, is an absolute ghost town. You basically, unless there's another player that's also around your level that's using Chromie Time war mode on the same realm as you are, you're not going to see any players at all out in the open world, which is kind of terrifying at once because I'd never seen the game this empty, this dead, but also kind of cool because now you have the world all to yourself, like it's your own personal playground. To enable Chromie mode, we do need to have a character that's a lower level. They cannot be level 70 and above because then they don't have access to Chromie mode. But if you have a character around level 60 or 65 or somewhere in the higher levels, in most cases, as long as they're well geared, you should have a fairly easy time dealing with enemies in Chromie Time. Chromie Time enemies will be upscaled to your character's current level, so even enemies like in the Shatar or Mechagon are going to be a bit of a challenge. So if your character does not have a lot of great gear, you will need some better items in order to survive him, especially some of the rares like Argus rares, for instance, that you're dealing with Chromie Time. All of those can actually be quite formidable because they're scaled up to your current level. Even if you're low level or higher level, those mobs will match your level and will be just as deadly, where in the past, those mobs required a group of players to take down, and right now they basically get upscaled to that same difficulty, where you try to solo some group scaled mobs. Which is a good reason for you to play something that can tank, not a rogue or any other DPS classes, but something that can tank, because tanks in most cases are formidable enough to be able to survive those rares evil all on their own, but also eventually take them down slowly but surely. So if you are making a character for this mode, preferably any tanks works. Bear Druids, Blood Death Knights, Warriors, or maybe not warriors, just anything that can self-heal is fine too, but most tanks should be just fine when it comes to soloing a lot of these rares all on your own. Another component of this mode, in order to make sure that these characters don't level outside of Chromie Time, which you actually can reach a certain level where you get kicked out of Chromie, you do want to disable your experience gain. There's an experience eliminator NPC in the Stormwind Keep over for the Stormwind, and for the Horde they'll be found in the Valley of Honor. I believe it's this building with chain dummies all the way at the top of that building. There should be an experience eliminator as well. Paying 10 gold allows you to stop leveling on that character, so you can stay in this Chromie Time warbound, a secluded mode for the rest of your eternity, farming as many rares as you want to. Now, I also wanted to give you a couple ideas of what type of rares and world enemies you can farm in order to potentially get some new mounts. If you're very adventurous, technically flying all around Storm Peaks, you could be looking out for the elusive Time Lost Proto-Drake. That is something that apparently players have been doing with this type of a mode, usually in multiple characters camping on the spawn spots, but that one still eludes me. But if you're ambitious, that is one option. But let's start with zones such as Draenor, where there's actually a number of rares that can be found in Tana and Jungle that all have a chance of dropping a mount. You either have a couple of options, either right in front of Hellfire Citadel, there's a rare, there's also a rare in Temple of Shah-Nar, there's the Iron Front that kind of walks between kind of like Zangar or the Iron Front area. I'm supposed to have a flight path here, I think, but I'm not finding one. Maybe that's for the Alliance. But there's a rare that goes up and down the steps here. Then Inner Ruins of Kranak, this spot right here is where a rare can spawn. So all of these rares all have a chance to get, or have a chance to drop a box that eventually can become one of 3 different mounts that will show up with like a sword cross icon on the map. So this one is a little bit easier to see. The rest of the actual Draenor, there's a couple of rares here and there, all around the main Embari village, all around this path in Shadowmoon Valley. There's a rare that I actually got luck out on. Any of these rares outside of Tana and Jungle are all 100% drop, but their spawn rates are pretty bad though, so it may take you a little bit before they actually spawn, but I did get lucky on the one in Shadowmoon Valley. Over in Talador, over in the near Turim, and in the waters essentially, there is another rare as well, which will give you a mount such as a River Beast. I believe it is this one, the Sapphire River Beast, that comes from a rare called Silthide. Over in the Grand, there's two. At the starting of the zone and all the way down this path, all the way down near Throne of the Elements, there's a small chance you may encounter a mammoth rare that drops you a mammoth mount. On the other side of the waters, kind of on this side of the Jaws Rylax flight path, up this path and all the way across, kind of down this road, up and down this road, there's another one. I was trying to find it specifically. I guess I don't really know what these things are supposed to be called, but it's a Bloodhoof bull that comes from Knock the Thunderer, which will also be found in the Grand. Over in Frostfire Ridge, kind of by Wargal, over on the edge, there is a wolf rare that also drops a mount. Garhowl, I believe it is. Garn Nighthowl, there, yeah. So that'll come from a rare called Knock Karash. And I believe I'm missing one. I think it's somewhere near the Crackling Plains, or at least a little bit north of that. I forget what the mount for that one is. I think it might be the Great Grey Tusk, which drops from Gorok, which apparently I already have. I was not aware of that though. But that's another rare that you could potentially obtain from that region as well. So those are the Warlord's General mounts, but if you want some Legion mounts, there's a lot that you can collect on Argus. Over in Argus, there's a variety of different mana rays with vibrant, scintillating, or even like a Nasher type of pets, or rather mounts, that you can collect from any of these rares. And a lot of these rares have about like a 5% drop rate on any of these mounts over in the Argus zones. But a couple spots you want to watch out for is kind of like next to Prophet Reflection. Right about here, there's a rare that drops a mount. Over on this side with the Shadow Guard, there's one about here-ish that drops one. And there should be one over here that possibly has a chance of dropping a mount. Then we can get on Torrent Waste. There's a number of elites and rares here. Over here, there's one that actually gave my Bear Druid quite a bit of trouble, but that one you may have to kite on the time walking chromie time warbound character. Then over by the Spirit Crucible, there's another one as well. That rare, however, has a bunch of traps that you can kind of kite the rare into, so it can take a little bit less time to farm it. Then over a little north, there's a cave over here. There's a rare that can drop one of those bile mounts, but then also the bridge right next to it, there's a Pit Mother rare there as well. So there's a couple of spots that you can hang out in just in Torrent Waste specifically. Then there's expansion of Battle for Azeroth, which has a variety of different mounts that you can collect from the Warfront zones, which are not necessarily highly contested. All of them have a decent spawn rate, so there's a pretty good chance that you should be able to chance at one of those. But there is a rare mount in Darkshore, kind of like in the southern section right around here. There's about 6 spawn locations, but it's called a Frightened Kodo. This one is still being farmed by players to this day, and that one is still eludes many as of this moment, so it's a little bit harder to get a hold of. But if you are in your own separate instance, there's a pretty good chance that you might be able to find it when it spawns. It spawns anywhere between every hour to every 8 hours, so it has a pretty big gap of like how often it spawns, but that one is also a pretty good one to farm up as well. Continuing with Battle for Azeroth mounts, once you've unlocked, and you will have to do this intro storyline for the Rustbolt Resistance and the Mechagon Island, but once you do, you will start being able to farm a couple of mounts. There's one way up here on the cliff. Either this cliff or this cliff, I can't really remember specifically, but there's Rust Feather. That one has a chance to drop in your mount. Then there's also a Mechanical Spider one that also has a chance of dropping you a mount as well. But at least also some of the more well-known locations that players are farming to this day outside of the Nazjatar spots. So if you want to make a character, or maybe even a couple, park them in every one of these major locations to check if a rare is up. Check in maybe a couple of times a day, because there's a good chance if it's up, nobody is there to contest it, and if it's up and available, then you should be able to slay it for yourself or claim yourself one extra mount to add to your collections. And I'm generally not really a mount guy myself, but I've actually found some fun with this whole system. Just the fact that it's sitting right there, and normally it's just getting swarmed by players as soon as it's available, but in this type of self-created version of the solo mode of Azeroth, there's no one else there to take it from you, so you can just log on, collect some mounts in your own free time, which I actually kind of find a little bit of fun, and it's starting to become a bit of a pastime for me over these last few days. But with that being said, as always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy this little guide. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure to join our Discord, where we'll be posting more updates for patch 11.1, which should hopefully be coming out in PTR very soon. Let me know your thoughts down below. Happy New Year, everybody. Hopefully 2025 will be a fantastic year when it comes to content and WoW. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.